Well, this is the first major boo-boo slash loss slash this freaking sucks in a while. The last thing I can remember was I did a water change with those Synodontis petricola in my 55-gallon last year and ended up losing almost all of them. Same thing with this tank, almost a total loss, unfortunately. When I went to bed last night, this tank had 64 calico plecos that were born on 10-2, which is a little less than a month ago. So this was kind of up and coming batch, really nice, healthy 64. And then 4 lemon plecos that were growing out that were larger that I've had for a while that I'm hoping to, grow out. They weren't born here, but I'm hoping to grow out. Well, every single one of these 64 calico plecos is dead, it looks like. Maybe there's a few, but I mean, there's lots of these little tiny, if you guys don't want dead stuff, click off now, but all these little tiny guys, it's not too graphic, but these little tiny guys floating around here. I just saw this, so I'm gonna clean this tank out. And as you can see here, this is one of the lemon bristlenose that's alive, and there's another one that's alive down there. There's 2 that are alive, but as you can see, this unfortunate fellow or lady didn't make it. Not exactly sure what happened. My water had been off. I had a leak in the house, so my water was off for like 2 days or so. And last night it came back on. Well, they fixed it and I turned it back on. So I did water changes on these pleco tanks last night. I mean, I did water changes on all 4 of these 40s, as well as these 55s. And the only tank that has an issue is this one right here. And when I was draining this tank last night, I drained it a little further than I wanted to, like literally like 80% of the water was gone. Not ideal, but I've done that before. I usually do heavy water changes, like at least like 50% is my normal. So, I mean, 40 to 50% is still a heavy water change. So these tanks are used to it. Like all these tanks last night got around 40, 50%. This one got about, like I said, 80%. As soon as I realized how much water was gone, I didn't fill it up all the way at once, right? I filled it up a little bit first, then I filled up this tank, then I filled it up a little more, then I filled up this tank and one of those tanks, then I filled it up the rest of the way, so it wouldn't be like a dramatic shock. It looks like that wasn't enough. I guess the change in the water was too much of a shock. I'm assuming that's what it was. The dead giveaway when I came out here, and something was wrong with this tank, was all the snails. If you notice these snails, everyone's at the top. Everyone's at the top of the water, which to me signals bad water quality. Something's wrong, something's wrong. Even if there was nobody dead or anything, that was the first giveaway. Even if I just saw this and no one was dead, I would do a water change probably. I'd test the water, but I would just do a water change because I just know that if you see a bunch of snails and everybody's kind of running for the top, that's something's going wrong. And in this case, it's because we had a bunch of deceased fish, and also the food was uneaten. I fed a little bit of food. I don't think that's the reason why. At first, I saw the uneaten food and I thought it was spoiling, but the food didn't spoil. And yeah. Anyway, guys, I've explained enough. I'm gonna go clean out all these unfortunate losses, and then do a little bit of a water change. It's actually a little worse than I expected in terms of losses. We lost a bunch of these snails also. Didn't realize at first, but then as I was taking out the crud, because these are all the deceased plecos, and there's some snails, and yeah, but we lost a bunch of these adult mystery snails, unfortunately, it looks like. I think what happened was, well, the good news is we have some clutches still that hopefully are viable, and a few adults. Hopefully we still have some males and females. But I think what happened was it kind of spiraled out of control, whereas, it didn't take that long. I mean, I went to bed later than I'd like to admit last night. It was Friday night. I was up packing some plecos people had bought and stuff, and I didn't go to bed until after midnight. It's currently 7:30 in the morning. So, 7 hours, like the longest or so, 7-8 hours was about as long as this tank was left. But I think, the smaller plecos probably, succumb first. and then, you know, whatever. It's like the smaller plecos and the snails, and then it just kind of spiraled out of control. I guess I'm lucky I caught it when I did and I didn't sleep in, because I think I would have lost even the more adult plecos and probably all the snails. Draining the tank right now. I'm probably going to do 2 small water changes today, maybe, or at least 1 small today and 1 small tomorrow, and keep monitoring it. Hopefully I don't have any more losses. Hopefully I've nipped it in the butt. Moving forward, something I knew, these tanks are, you know, they're fine. They all work this way. They all have like a single sponge filter. This tank down here actually has like 2 batches and like 70 plus plecos. So I actually installed a second sponge filter just to give an extra barrier. And I think I'm gonna do that in all these tanks, simply because I think if I had an extra sponge filter and more air, it would have not prevented this totally. Like I said, I believe the cause of this was me doing a water change that was, you know, too heavy too quickly. 80%, even though I do large water changes, I think it was just too much. But I feel as if extra larger sponge filter or dual sponge, you know, not dual, this is a dual, but like 2 sponge filters would have been an extra line of defense and kept more, you know, kept the water quality, kept the oxygen level up a little better. I don't know. At the end of the day, it can't hurt. So always learning, always trying to improve and just kind of learn from my mistakes. And this was clearly one of my mistakes. But let's keep draining this. Hopefully I might sort through and try to pick out some of these snails that are alive. This is a line of blue ram's horn snails I was working on. As you can see, some of the older ones kind of get gray and pitted, but I'm trying to work on these blue ram's horn and separate them out. We'll see how far that set me back. But man, I was hoping one of these I put them over here hoping they would move, because these are the ones that were on the ground. And obviously the ones that are on the tank are fine because they're alive. And this one, I don't even know, is this one freaking, I don't know. I was putting them out here to see, hopefully they would, you know, start moving around, but I don't think any of these guys have moved since I put them out here. But I'll touch base with you guys after I'm done draining this. I don't think anybody's moved. Filling the tank with water back up, and this is how I do it. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about this, because obviously putting a hose directly into a tank is not always the best case scenario. I make sure that the water temperature matches closely if I'm gonna do it this way. If not, I will stage it in a bucket first. However, this is what I've done. I understand that it definitely leaves me susceptible to some issues. You know, like last night, if I were to do 80% water change of, you know, water that was the exact same temperature, maybe I would have been a little better. That's why I did it in 3 different stages in terms of filling up the water over the course of probably about an hour and 15 minutes last night. It definitely wasn't the lack of conditioner. I use Safe. I've definitely recommend using Safe. If you guys have a bunch of fish tanks and they're a fairly decent size, I recommend Safe. You know, even if you have a million of these size tanks, it's difficult because you have to dose so small. But the minimum size tank I use for Safe is usually a 40 breeder and 55s. Anything smaller than that, and it's just easier to use, you know, regular liquid. But essentially, this is just powdered form of like a prime, more or less. And I know for a fact that I did not forget that step. I actually put a small amount in twice on the first and third fill up. So I don't think that was an issue. Typically what I do is I put a little bit in when I start, and then I put a little more in it when I'm nearing filling the tank. So like, once again, I think it was just a combination of too strong of a water change. The water wasn't exactly the same, you know, temperature, even though I waited. And these plecos, there was, you know, some smaller plecos. These guys are only a few weeks old, so they were more susceptible. I think if I did this to a tank with some larger plecos, they would have been fine. But just the perfect storm. But we learn from our mistakes. You know, that's what this is all about. You live and learn, you get better, you tweak things, and we move forward. So we're moving forward. This is an unfortunate situation, but oh, we have movement. I think someone's moving over here. Oh, we have some movement. That's good. Okay. There's always a silver lining. There's always a silver lining. So it looks like we'll be able to salvage a few more mystery snails, and I'm gonna get to work cleaning these sponge filters and setting it up to install a second one. You can check out my fail from last year with the Synodontis catfish right here. More wild fish tanks right over there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, guys, especially in times like this, stay positive and stay passionate.